Today we're in the R&D shop at EPI. We're going to do a clutch kit install on a 2012 500 Sportsman HO. This will also do the same type of installation on most of the older style Polarises without the engine braking. Alright, to start things off, we remove the left side footrest, the seat, and the side panel. There's also a little plastic dart up here that allows you to move the fender a lot more. It'll get you to these vent lines a lot easier and allow you to pull the clutch cover off a lot easier. We pulled out all these bolts on the clutch cover, so then it's just a matter of pulling out on this. It does help to pull out on the fender a little bit, but then you just slide off the rubber vent line and then just pull it out. That'll show you the two clutches in there. This is going to be your primary clutch, your drive clutch on the motor. This will be your secondary clutch or driven clutch on the transmission. Okay, so now we got the clutch cover off. What we've done is we've pulled the bolt out of here. Normally it's not on there too tight. What we do is slide a bar in here through the clutch. And the biggest thing to watch is you want to hit it on the outside of these towers. You don't want to go in between here because you'll damage the surface here where the plastic buttons slide up and down. So as long as you're on the outside of the tower in both spots, you know, a large screwdriver or a small bar works really good for it. We just got a small bar in here right now. You'll have to hold it usually to get the bolt off, and then hold it the other direction to tighten up the clutch puller. This is the EPI PCP1 clutch puller. Works on most of the Polaris ATVs. All you do is you just throw it in there by hand. Once you get it as far as you can turn it by hand, you just throw your wrench on there, hold your bar in place, and you might have to tighten it a few times. Your bar should stay in place once you get tension on it, and you just tighten it up. Sometimes it comes off easier than others. Sometimes it'll make a popping noise when it pops loose. This one came loose now. You slide your bar out, and you can pull it off your primary clutch. So it's pretty simple. Set that down. You can put your bolt off to the side. For the secondary clutch, there's a bolt here. Usually you can just twist that off pretty easily with just pull that off. It's just on the spline shaft, it's not pressed on or anything. So once you have that, just pull it off. The biggest thing to watch, as you've seen that one fall off, sometimes some models will have these little spacers behind the primary clutch. Sometimes they might stick to your clutch, sometimes they'll stay on. This one has actually multiple ones on there, which is common on the Polarises. If they fall off, just make sure you put them on, but always inspect them. Make sure you're watching when you pull it off so you don't lose one on the ground or one doesn't stay stuck to the clutch and you lose on the workbench or something. But all you gotta do is slide it back on, you're good to go, and then we'll bring these over to the bench and tear them apart. Okay, so here's your primary clutch. We got it on the workbench. There's a couple things you want to do. First, what I always do is take a marker, mark these couple spots. This cover plate will come off. Mark the part of the clutch and the spider. That way if you ever get it taken apart or when you go to put it back together, you know you got it exactly right, because this one is balanced from the factory, so you want to make sure they're back in the right way. To get it apart, what you want to do is use a compression tool, or if you have a buddy there, he can help you compress it down. You just want to do it evenly so you don't wreck the bushing that's in here, but remove all the bushing, or remove all the bolts. This already got it out and loose. And then this one's a pretty soft spring in it, so it's pretty easy to do. And just pull this cover off. Again, we got it marked so we know where it goes back on. And then pull out your primary spring, and then we'll pull out the weights. Alright, so we got the spring out. Now what you want to do is remove the nut off the weight pin. Just slide the weight pin out. Remove the stock weight. And put the EPI weight in there. And do that, you just make sure it's in the hole. Slide it through, tighten up, or put the nut on and tighten it up. So once you got that tight, I didn't go fully tight just to speed things up. The other thing you want to do before you put the spring and cover back on is clean your clutches. Now this one's a brand new clutch from a new machine, so it's pretty clean, but normally, I don't know if the camera will show it, but this part will be really shiny and glazed over, or it could have lots of black dirt and dust and everything on it. So what you want to do is just take an air gun first, blow it out really good, blow out all this part. That'll get a whole bunch of belt dust out of there and stuff. And this, take a emery cloth or a Scotch-Brite or a real light sandpaper and just kind of scuff going like this all the way around it, going perpendicular to the outside of the clutch, and then do the same thing on this part. Any place where the belt rides up and down. And then again, blow it out, and if you take some brake cleaner on a clean cloth and just wipe it down, that'll get it good and clean, take all the belt glazing off, and you'll be good to go. So then once you've got that done, it's always a good idea to, when you have the secondary clutch part, clean that one too. But now once you got the weights put in there, then it's just a matter of, again, finding your X's that we put on there, which is right there. Put in your primary spring, and then again line up your X here, that way you know you got everything together, same order it came apart. And the biggest thing is you want to try to compress this square, whether you have a clutch press or a buddy there to help you, compress it flat, and then you can pull up on the clutch and bring the bolts up to it. And once you do that, then the matter of just putting the bolts in and put them in all the way around so you don't damage that bushing. Just kind of hold on it. This one's a softer spring, so I can kind of do it by hand here real fast. But once you got that, it'll kind of lock itself in place. Put all 6 bolts in. On the secondary clutch, there's 2 things you got to do. One, you got to kind of compress down on it, and it won't move a whole lot, but it'll be just enough to get the tension off the snap ring. And you got to press down on that. And as you're holding down, again, this is better if you got a buddy there to help you and stuff. Just pull the snap ring off. Oop. Pull the snap ring off, and then there's also a little shim in there, and let go. And I don't know if you noticed that, but the clutch spun a little bit. When we put it back together, we'll have to preload it so it gets the right amount of preload on there. You can also see here that there's holes in the helix for the tabs of the spring to fit into. This is number 1 hole, that's number 2 hole. We'll show you, and in our instructions it'll tell you what hole to put them in with our new spring and helix in there. So once you get that apart, it's pulled apart. Sometimes it gets a little sticky in there, but you just pull it off. Make sure you hang on to that washer because you'll reuse that on the stock or on the EPI helix. But here's your helix, and you pull out your snap ring or your spring, and then you'll reveal your buttons in here. This one's a brand new one again, so it's in pretty good shape, but again, you want to blow this out, clean it all out, inspect these buttons. They'll get flat spots on them, but if they're totally gone or missing, or where the helix could rub on the aluminum clutch instead of the plastic, then it's time to replace those. So if yours is a couple years old, got some wear and tear on it, it's not a bad idea to replace those while you're in here. Alright, so this is the tricky part when you're trying to assemble it. It's not really hard, it's just, you're doing a couple different things at the same time. The biggest thing is once you get everything assembled, you can see these they're yellow, sometimes they're white, sometimes they're brown. Plastic buttons, that's what slides up and down the helixes here. When you put it together, once we start putting it together, it'll be harder to see, so I'm kind of explaining it now. Is this point of the helix will be down in there, and what you want to do is wherever it lines up, you want to turn the clutch so the helix goes past the next button and slide it down, which usually is around 1/3 of a turn or so, and that'll get you the right amount of preload. It's the same thing they do at the factory. The difference is sometimes you can put it in different spring holes to change that tension. So what we're going to do is we'll put springs in. Here's your spring holes that you have. There's usually a 1, 2, and 3 on the clutch itself, and there's number 1 and 2 on the helix. So what we'll do is we'll put this in here. One other thing is some of the newer style washers that are under your snap ring have little tabs on them. All you gotta do is pound them flat. If they're flat already, all you gotta do is put it on there. The other thing to watch when you get to assembling this is there is a boss spline that's a little bit bigger than the other ones, and you'll have to line up on the shaft of the clutch when you go to put it together. Otherwise it's not gonna slide down on the splines. So what we'll do is we'll take the spring, this particular model, we're going in the settings according to the instructions. So we got that in there. You grab your helix, put that through the hole, make sure that you can see the tabs in there so it's seated correctly, or see the springs sit through there. And then it's just a matter of compressing it down. Again, you got to line up that boss spline, so it can get a little tricky at first. And then I'm going to use a clutch press just so it's a little bit easier for me to do it here. It gets a little bit tricky on the ATV ones, but so that's what happens. Some people just push it all the way down without preloading it. If you go out and ride it and it seems like it's stuck in high gear, it's really boggy, that means you didn't get this set right. So what you want to do is you want to let it come up far enough where it's not going to hit on the buttons. And then what we have to do is I'm actually going to lock this in place here. You have to hold the helix in place and the bottom half of the clutch, and the easiest way I found is then to wind up the secondary, or the top part of the secondary clutch. And there, that's about 1/3 of a turn, and I can see that you can see the buttons down in there. Push that down. Make sure your washer's on here, and then put your snap ring on. And then you're good to go. Alright, so when you get over put the secondary clutch on, make sure the washers are in place so you get the proper alignment, and then just slide the clutch up on the shaft like that. You might have to put it in gear if the shaft is spinning on you, but it'll allow you to get that on there. And then it's as simple as just putting your bolt and washer on here, torque that to the factory specs. We'll just leave them loose here just to show you how to do it here. And then put the belt on. And this one we're just using the OEM belt. Again, whether it's our belt or anybody else's, you want to make sure that if there's an arrow, you make that so it's reading right. If there's no arrow, you want it so you can read the numbers from left to right. And the biggest thing is however it's on there, when you first take it off, make sure that's the way you put it back on. But on this style, all you gotta do is put the belt around the secondary clutch there. Grab your primary clutch. Kind of put it through there. And then just put it on your shaft. And then what you want to do, slide your bolt in, tighten that up. What you want to do is you want to tighten it to factory specs. Again, using the small bar to hold it from rotating, and being careful of how and where you put it through the clutch so you don't damage anything. And then you just grab your torque wrench and torque it down. Once it's torqued, you should be good to go. If the belt is stuck way down in the secondary, put it in neutral, spin the clutches, that'll reset that. Check everything over. Once everything looks good, then it's just a matter of getting your clutch cover on and putting the rest of it back together so you're ready to ride. Alright, so it takes a little bit of time and patience, but the biggest thing to remember when you slide your clutch cover up in here is you gotta make sure that this rubber seal is on your air duct here. Whether you take off one side or the other, the smaller side is normally easier to take apart for me, but it does take a little bit of playing around to make sure it's sealed all the way around, otherwise you'll get water inside the clutch cover. You can kind of tell too when it's on there correctly because it'll fit into place better. Then it's just a matter of getting all the clutch or all the bolts in there on the clutch cover, tighten it up again, make sure your seal's in place and that's sealed up tight, and then bolt it together. Alright, so as you can see, we got everything assembled. Make sure you put all your bolts in and the seal is good on the clutch cover. Put your footrest on, the seat, the side cover. You're good to go. Go out and ride it and have some fun.